Hi everyone, it's Melissa, and today I wanted to share with you things that I might read in October. But Melissa, you may ask, didn't you just film a video saying how burnt out you are and that you've been struggling to concentrate and haven't been reading much? Well, yes, I did. So I realize this is an absolutely huge pile of books. This is not a TBR, this is a pile of possibilities. I am hoping that my energy will pick up a little bit. It has a little bit the past few days, so I'm hoping my energy will pick up a little bit and I can actually read a bit more. But I'm not delusional enough to think that I will get through all these books. So I have two different TBRs or piles of possibility. One is for Victober and one is more for kind of like Halloweeny, kind of like spooky, scary book vibes. So my rough plan is for the first couple of weeks-ish to be reading Victorian literature for Victober, and for the last couple of weeks, I know I will probably be more in the mood for some spooky horror, thriller, Halloween type of books. So I have 4 books that I've chosen as possibilities for Victober. Let's see if I can remember the prompts offhand because I did not prepare for this video. By the way, I will link all of the hosts for Victober down below. Katie's prompt was to read a book set in the country and or the city. And for this, I've chosen Silas Marner by George Eliot. I don't know if this is the best place to start with George Eliot. I suspect not, but it's the book that I have on hand. Also, it's short, and because I've been struggling to read, I thought this might be a good choice. I'm not 100% sure this is actually set in the countryside. I'm just assuming it is because I know the main character in this is kind of a hermit, miser, loner type of guy. And so in my head, that just means he lives in the countryside. Also, as a kid, I watched a movie. It wasn't really an adaptation. It was more like a retelling or inspired by, I guess. I watched that movie, and in that, the guy kind of lived in this rural setting, and so I'm assuming this is going to be a countryside book, but I might be wrong. But Silas Marner is my first in the Victober pile. Kate's prompt or challenge, I guess, was to read a sensation novel. I read my very first Victorian sensation novel last Victober. It was The Woman in White by Wilkie Collins, and I loved it. So I'm hoping for another enjoyable, over-the-top sensation novel experience. And for this, I've chosen Lady Audley's Secret by Mary Elizabeth Braddon. I don't know anything about it. I didn't really look up any of these books because when you start looking up information for classics, you get spoiled for a lot of things. And I live in some sort of like charmed universe where I haven't been spoiled for very many things, just fortunately. So there are a lot of classics that most people know about that I just don't. So I know nothing about this either. But yeah, hoping for another great sensation novel this year. Lucy's prompt was to read a book with a female main character. I don't know that is the case with this book. I am just assuming given the title. So this is Wives and Daughters by Elizabeth Gaskell. Lots of people on BookTube love Elizabeth Gaskell. Haven't read anything by her. Again, this is the book I own. I've been trying to choose things that I own instead of going to the library. Love my library, but I just have so many unread things on my shelf. So that was kind of a little side goal of mine for October, is to pick things off of my shelf. So Wives and Daughters, again, know nothing about it. Have heard great things about Gaskell's writing. So this is a longer one, so this is probably lower on the priority list just because I have been struggling to read. And the last challenge, which I think is more of like the group challenge, I don't think this is any one person's challenge, is to read a popular Victorian novel. So I'm going to choose one that, again, I own and that everyone knows, and that is Oliver Twist by Charles Dickens. Again, I don't think this is necessarily the best spot to start with Dickens. Well, I have read A Christmas Carol, so it's not like I've read no Dickens, but I kind of don't even count that as reading Dickens because I don't think that's indicative of like most of his writing. He tends to write these really long books with lots of characters, and like that's just not A Christmas Carol. So this will be my like first really big, true, quote unquote, Dickens novel if I pick it up. But I've heard from a couple people that like Oliver Twist is like pretty low on most people's lists, I guess. Like a lot of people don't like it, but it's super popular. Like I think just in the general society, people know the story of Oliver Twist. Also, this might be a good book for my pop culture osmosis series if I have the energy to do another video, which I love making those videos, so I'm hoping that I can. But yeah, it's another long one. I might see if there's an audiobook of it, because that might be a nice one to listen to, like, especially if there's like a full cast version. I'm gonna look into that. So that's my Victober pile of possibilities. And spooky season. I love horror. I love like dystopians and like dark books. So I scoured my shelves to see what I have that looked good and like really I'm excited to read. First, I have a couple more like in the horror category. The first one being Pet Sematary by Stephen King. I really enjoy Stephen King's writing. He's probably the author I've read the most of, but I still have only touched a fraction of his writing because he is so prolific. This man writes a book every day. Anyway, Pet Sematary, among King fans, has been touted as like one of his better books. So I decided that like, yeah, this I think is the next King book that I want to read. So Pet Sematary, it's about pets that come back from the dead. Sounds like a grand old time to me. The next that I think is probably more in the horror category is The Bloody Chamber by Angela Carter. So this is a book of short stories. From what I know and from what the back says, it's very kind of like fairy tale inspired. And fairy tales are basically horror stories in my opinion. Also it's called The Bloody Chamber. I'm assuming is going to be dark. This one will probably get read because it is another little shorty. Next, I have a couple of thrillers, and I haven't read a thriller in a very long time. These are lower on the priority list, so I don't know if I'm going to get to them, but I thought I'd pop them on the list anyway. The first is I Let You Go by Claire McIntosh. This is about a woman who she moves, I think it's to like the Welsh countryside or something, and she's trying to escape something from her past, which catches up with her, and I guess the plot goes from there. I have purposely not really looked into this. A couple of booktubers whose opinions whose book tastes really align with mine, have spoke very highly of this book. So I Let You Go on the list for possible thrillers to read. The next thriller is The Perfect Nanny by Leila Slimani. I remember Jen Campbell talking about this. The UK version, I think, is called Lullaby. And the first line, or first like couple of lines, are basically the children are dead. And I was like, okay, this is dark and I'm into it. So that's why I have that book. And the last couple of like spooky season books are both middle grade because I figured, one, it's been a while since I've read a middle grade and I really enjoy middle grade. Two, middle grade are easy to get through. They don't require quite as much concentration. So if I'm still kind of like not my best reading self, then I could pick up a middle grade. One that's been on my list forever, my like want to read list forever, is The Graveyard Book by Neil Gaiman. This is about a boy whose family is murdered and he escapes and hides out in a cemetery and is raised by ghosts. It sounds delightful and dark. And the last book on my list is Small Spaces by Katherine Arden. This is something I don't know anything about. I believe I got this in some like bargain bin used book something. And I just really love the cover, and this was totally a cover buy. But yeah, like this just like screams spooky season to me. And the last thing I wanted to share really quickly were some movies I've been in the mood for. So I haven't been watching movies lately either. And I used to watch movies all the time, like never new stuff. I have a really bad habit of just rewatching the same movies I love over and over. But I haven't been able to concentrate on movies, but I'm in the mood for movies again. And this is by no means going to turn into like a movie review channel because I'm just not interested in that. But I personally enjoy it when booktubers share like movies and TV shows and podcasts and whatever that they are consuming. So I thought I would just share these with people who might be interested, or maybe you're looking for kind of like a autumnal or like spooky season movie to watch. So I scoured my DVD shelves and also looked through like the streaming things that we have to see like what sounded good. Most of these are kind of like, I would say, spooky season. A couple are not. They're just like, they just say fall to me for whatever reason. So the first, I would like to watch Jane Eyre. I think it's on like Netflix or it's somewhere. And I mean, I guess this ties into Victober. But I'm just curious, I guess, to see how they adapted that book because I can't visualize it in my head. The other couple of movies that are not like spooky season movies, but are more just like say fall to me are the Goonies. I mean, if you are around my age, this probably was a staple of your childhood. I have seen this so many times. I haven't seen it in a long time. For some reason, like the weather, the setting, the fact that it's school kids, it all says fall to me. Is it even set in the fall? It might be. I don't know. Goonies. We're gonna do it. The next kind of like feels like fall movie I want to watch is Willow. I don't think this is as well known. This was definitely another one of those like great 80s movies. This one is like fantasy. And yeah, I don't think it's as famous. Everyone seems to know Goonies. Not everyone knows Willow, but this is like one of my most beloved childhood movies. It is fantastical. It is also dark. There are some disturbing things now that I think about it. It is like a family movie, but not gonna lie, I was mildly traumatized by a couple of things in this movie. But I love this movie. Another one I haven't seen in a few years, and I really want to get to. My pile's gonna fall over. Okay, and then I have a list of kind of like more spooky movies. So, streaming. Something I watched last year or the year before was Knives Out. Whenever it came out, I watched it. If you haven't watched Knives Out, do it. I will say, although I love like horror and dark books, I don't watch horror movies unless they've been vetted by people I trust and I can kind of like look up the level of like violence, gore. So if you are like me and you are kind of like scared to watch like a scary movie and you saw Knives Out and thought like, ooh, is that going to be like scary? It is like part like thriller, not thriller, but like suspense, part like mystery whodunit, and like part comedy. It is brilliant. There's like minimal like blood or whatever because like someone is killed, but it's like not gory. If I could handle it, most people could probably handle it. I really want to rewatch it. It was a grand old time. And another thing I want to watch that's streaming is actually a TV show. Stranger Things Season 3. Yes, I know I'm behind. This show, like, I want to watch it, but it scares me. That show really scares me. It's not like gory and stuff though, so I can handle it, but it is just so incredibly suspenseful and it scares me. It's just, I feel like a kid while I'm watching it. I thought season 1 was excellent. Season 2 I thought was good, but like nowhere near season 1. So I'm a little bit like trepidatious. Is that a word? Over season 3. And the reason I haven't watched it is because of that and also because I am scared. And the last couple of things I found are like not horror, but again, they're kind of like dark or they just scream like Halloween season to me. The first is Donnie Darko. I probably haven't seen this movie in like at least 10, maybe even like 13 years or something. It's been a while. Someone talked about this movie and I can't remember who it was, but they were saying like, oh, does anyone really love Donnie Darko? It screams like the kind of movie people say they like just to sound cooler, to sound smarter, to sound like whatever. I can't remember the word they used. But I legitimately like Donnie Darko. Does that make me pretentious? Like, I don't know. But yeah, I haven't seen it in forever. If you haven't seen it, it's very like dark. There's like some bending of like reality and time. So I think sometimes people can get too confused. I was confused watching it, but I do think it makes sense at the end. People say it doesn't make sense. I do think it makes sense at the end. Anyway, very time trippy, if you like that kind of thing. And the last movie, but certainly not least, because it is my favorite movie of all time, and I watch it at least once, if not 2 or 3 times per year, is Clue. So, this movie, I mean, it has kind of like a cult following now, but it's still not as popular as it should be. It's a comedy. It is literally based on the board game Clue or Cluedo. So it has kind of like Colonel Mustard, Professor Plum, like all of the characters that are in Clue. And also, listen, Tim Curry's in it. Martin Mull is in it. Friggin' Madeline Kahn is in it. Christopher Lloyd. This movie is perfect. Maybe I'm overselling this, but it's so good. It's so funny. It's a murder mystery whodunit, just like Clue, the board game is. So it does have like that element of suspense, but like it's not scary. There's some kind of like creepy parts where they're like splitting up to search the house, but like this is another great one if you want kind of like Halloween-y, like spooky murder mystery type vibes, but are squeamish or don't want to see any gore or don't want to see anything like horribly violent, then like pick this up. If I only watch one movie this Halloween season, this is going to be it. So those are my reading and watching plans for October. I look forward to watching everyone's Victober and like spooky season TBRs. And as always, thanks so much for watching, and we'll chat soon. Take care. Bye.